welcome everybody. Welcome to this special council meeting. I'll commence the meeting by opening it and opening with a prayer. Almighty God, be with us as we work for the people of the Shire of Moorabool. Grant us wisdom that we may care for the Shire of true stewards of your creation, may be aware of the great responsibilities placed upon us, help us to be just in all our dealings, and may our work prosper for the good of all. Amen. I'd also like to now read out the acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and the Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be here in attendance. All councillors are present. Councillor Berry is online, and all other councillors are in the chamber, so there are no apologies. Item 5, Council, any disclosure of conflicts of interest on the business tonight? Thank you. There are no presentations or deputations. The first item of business is item 7.1, adoption of the 21-25 Council Plan 2022 update. There is a recommendation there, Council. Is there any questions? Councillor Dudzik?
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Dudzik, is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Ward, is there any dissent? I'll put that. All those in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Next item of business, councillors, is 7.2, adoption of the 22-23 budget. There is a recommendation on the top of page 11. Any questions or comments or that? Or
I'll move the recommendation. Motion, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder for that? Oh, sorry, I just had one on Councillor Minari. Sorry.
You're welcome.
Councillor Minari. Is there any dissent?
Oh, sorry. Can I just...
Sorry?
Sorry. Could I... I'd be happy to second it with a slight amendment to the budget if I could.
I'll just second it.
You'll second it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would Councillor Edwards like to hear my
Well,
amendment?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear.
Might be a slight amendment. If that's,
Slight amendment, yes.
I'll just, if you could please
Is that all right?
advise.
Yep. I would just like to add a paragraph in the budget, so it'd obviously be an addition, of the discretion of the CEO, of course, that Council writes to the Minister of Local Government, fully supporting the Victorian Farmers Federation proposal regarding valuation averaging.
I think probably that would be something that could be dealt with in a notice of motion or something, because this is, I think that's probably more appropriate than, but second, move it, you want to sort of...
I'm happy with Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
it's just another item, I'm assuming.
I just feel that the farmers of our region would be happy with that in the budget.
So you're talking about the 3-year
Yeah, would you
combining...
I've got a little bit more information if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
For me
I think,
to add.
so that'll go into the, not into the recommendation, but into the body of
Wouldn't
the
it be better
document.
Body of the budget,
separate and get
as a paragraph,
information
like
on it?
an added, like added paragraph in, like paragraph 7, I think it
That's
was.
sort of clear, isn't it?
Yeah, it's recommendations.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so it'll be, oh, well, it'll be on the recommendation, it'll be 7, won't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Claire, is it move?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I would have liked a little bit more information on it, because I'm not exactly sure what she's talking about, and it's good to know what you're voting on.
Well, I guess the thing is, I think Councillor Minari did have some additional information. Would you like to hear that first, Councillor Dudzik?
Would have been good to circulate, but yeah,
It's only a couple of paragraphs.
I'd like to know more about it before I'm asked to vote on it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So the valuation averaging should be, so the VFF is saying that the valuation averaging should be introduced for all councils in Victoria. Under this system, all councils would strike rates based on a moving average valuation calculated for each property over the past 5 years. The actual valuations returned each year by the Valuer General would remain the same, but the valuation basis for the rate strike would be changed.
You okay with that?
So you're just saying that we're writing saying that we're supporting it, but we're not putting any requirements on our current budget or the government?
We can't. We don't have any legislation to change this, but it's just saying that we, on behalf of our farmers, we like this idea. We would love that the government support this idea to help our ratepayers.
Councillor Dudzik, if you wanted to withdraw your seconding, we'll perhaps go back to Councillor Minari if that was...
I just would have liked it circulated.
Okay.
That would be
Well,
the polite thing to do.
Do you want to remain that?
That's okay,
Okay,
it's
we'll
fine,
leave
you
it.
can do that, but
Was everyone
yeah.
quite clear on that change that, now, I did sort of say, was there any opposition? And Councillor Tatchell raised his hand, so the move of Councillor Edwards, please, and then if you could speak to the motion.
Yeah,
Recommendation,
certainly,
rather.
Mr Mayor. To me, this is, in my 10 years on council, this is a really exciting budget. What it does do is delivers on our healthy, livable communities, livable and thriving environments, and it's our council has listened and adapted to its community's requests. If you have a look through some of the detail, you'll see that there's over $61 million in capital works, and that comes on the back of only a small, well, in comparison, it's not small, I shouldn't say small, inappropriate word, but $37 million of rates and $61 million in capital works. I think that's a pretty impressive achievement by council. With that, I support the proposed budget.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Tatchell, as you expressed dissent, could you...
Yeah, thanks,
Speak,
Mr Mayor. Look, and I can't argue with Councillor Edwards on that. I think it, in terms of the budget, probably is one of the best ones we've seen over the last 10 years in terms of its conciseness and its ability to go over a number of sectors and complement the work that's been done over a number of years. But the bigger issue here is that there is no mechanism within local government to reduce rates, and we're actually blackmailed into increasing rates by CPI because it has a negative effect the next year under that system. The frustration is that we've just gone through 2 years of incredibly difficult times, or unprecedented times really, especially in rural areas. And now we're faced with a inflationary spike that could be well because of you've come out of a COVID type operation and then you head back into business and there usually is a spike and things happen. But generally when these things happen, when there's either a recession or when there's a go slow, generally people are very conservative when they come out of it because of the spike. And it's generally just a safety net to make sure we don't know what the future brings. I mean, if you listen to the RBA, they've been totally wrong over the last 12 months in terms of their view on our inflationary position. But on the ground, in real terms, we still compare CPI figures with Melbourne and the rural sector, which are totally wrong because the recovery in the rural area will be much slower than what it will be in the city areas. And my concerns are probably more on the ground, they're out the coalface, that people are really doing it tough at the moment, having come out of COVID where it was flatlining to a peak inflationary period. And on top of that, they're being forced to, we've probably had some of the coldest winters we've had in our region for a long time, where people are choosing between eating and heating in a lot of places because we don't have that infrastructure. We also find that rural people all have to travel, so the inflationary costs on fuel have had a very dramatic effect on their daily budgets or the things they do on a daily basis. And what I hear from the people that ring me regularly are probably the working poor that, yes, they may own a home or they may be paying off a home, but they're still struggling to make ends meet. That the business sector hasn't quite come back in the rural area like it has in the city areas. Their job security isn't as secure as it was because some of the businesses are under immense pressure in the rural sector, basically because of the inflationary costs. What I'm saying is that 2 years ago I took the view that we should be very careful during COVID that we don't overextend ourselves, especially when you enter into the unknown. I've been in business 40 years and every time I'm unsure of something into the future, I just stop because I think that's what you do. You stop, you reevaluate, you take a conservative approach to where you sit, you protect your employees, you protect the system. And the big difference between normal everyday people in business and government is that when they do their budgets, they don't know what their revenue is going to be. They don't have a fixed revenue base. So they can move things around in terms of costs, but they certainly can't do anything in terms of revenue because It's a lot dependent on the global economy. And if we look, we've been very fortunate in this country that we haven't had a massive inflationary spike. And when you consider places in Europe and America where they've gone straight to 6%, 7% and 8%, we've still got relatively low mortgages, but it doesn't mean people aren't under pressure. And I suppose the warning signs, or the key warning signs are, is when we have banks that are now talking about long-term investment at 6s and 7s for people prepared to put large blocks of funding in, that to me indicates that we're heading into an inflationary period that will inevitably drive a recession. And what we can't do, or what we shouldn't do, we should take a conservative view to that and be careful how we approach that. The other thing that happens in these circumstances is when you do have an inflationary spike after a flatline is that there's a shortage of labour, there's a shortage of professional staff, a shortage of contractors, and once again the price goes through the roof. So generally, you buy when the price is low and you tend to take a conservative view when the price is high. Well, I don't remember in this country since the 70s ever seeing contractual arrangements at the levels or the heights that they've been in recent times, or the shortage of contractual staff and the blowouts in budgets. And we've seen that through the state government. Nearly every project they've done over the last 3 years has not just blown out by 10 or 15%. Some of them have blown out by 50, 70 and 100%. So I'm saying, yes, it is a very good budget, and I commend Steve for the work he's done. I commend, in any other circumstance, other than where we sit today with this unpredictability of where we sit fiscally in rural Victoria, I would comfortably say this was probably the first budget I'd put hand on heart and say it works. But I think I can't support it in terms of what I feel, what I believe is going to happen over the next couple of years. I do believe that we need to be conservative. I do believe that when people are doing it tough, you hold back, you don't spend money. I don't think we need to be adding any more pressures to our residents. I think the people in our Moorabool region are in for a tough time financially. I think that the cost of living, and look, I've got to tell you, I want to be clear on this because I know I'm taking up extra time, Mr. Mayor, but I think it's really important. I don't go to the supermarket very often. I buy my groceries online. But I went down to the supermarket the other night and just to see what everyday people are doing when they get home from work and how they spend their money. And I watched a lot of people putting stuff back. Now, I haven't seen that in Ballan before. I haven't seen someone say, well, look, I can't afford that. So I went for a walk down the aisles, and my wife will tell you I'm the worst bloke to send him to the supermarket. I get lost in it. I have no idea how the thing works. That's why I buy online. But I spoke to a couple of people in those aisles. I said, look, how are you travelling? And the overwhelming response back is they said their heating costs are killing them in terms of, because we don't have natural gas at all of our rural houses. So they've had to make adjustments in their budgets for their food. They said their ability to travel to and from work in their vehicles has skyrocketed, and the overtime's not there like it was because there's cutbacks in terms of fiscal responsibility in businesses. And so I can only take it from the coalface that we're already seeing this effect, and I think it's time that the three levels of government had a look at that and just said, well, what is reasonable? To get public service, when 30% of this country is public service, what is reasonable for people to take out of their wallets and budget with their families, and to make sure that we still have a thriving economy in the bush from an agricultural perspective, from a business perspective? What is reasonable? And I'm sorry, I don't agree with the state government that you should just put it up by CPI. I think a government's responsibility is to people ultimately, and that is to make sure they're okay. And that's to make sure that the things that they live on a daily basis and their families, their grandchildren, children, that it's affordable. And I just don't want to be one of the ones putting another burden on families that are already doing it tough. So whilst I love the budget in terms of the work that Steve's done, in my view, I think this is the very year where we should be brave at Moorabool and say, no increase, let's see where the water is in 12 months' time and have a look at it. But at this very moment, let's not add to the problem. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tatchell. Councillor Dudzik, you're a second. Do you wish to speak, please?
This is a very good budget, delivering fantastic projects in the coming year ahead. So opportunities are abundant, and I congratulate the staff on preparing an excellent budget that will really deliver for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Dudzik. I just realised in the local law there is opportunity for an abstainer. He gets 2 minutes. So if anyone wants to abstain, they can speak if they wish. But anyone for or against? No, I was just checking the local law, and I just realised that for an abstainer you can have 2 minutes to speak. So I didn't realise that until just then. So I'm just that's something that's come through. But any other speakers for or against?
I've just got a question, if that's all right.
Certainly.
Who was the seconder? I thought I was.
Well,
Sorry, we're confused.
Then Councillor Dudzik then said
Accepted?
you want to
Okay,
change it. I
great.
said,
Thank
okay,
you.
then we sort of did that,
No,
so I
wonderful.
apologise.
Thanks.
Any other speakers for or against? No. Councillor Edwards, would you wish to close the debate, please?
Yes, certainly, Mr Mayor. Look, you can't argue with Councillor Thatcher that we potentially could go into a recession. Potentially last year COVID was going to do a massive amount of damage and people will be painted up. There are many opportunities that I see within this budget that will actually help alleviate some of those potential problems that may come up. Because when you're putting $61 million into the community and projects right across everywhere from Lowell to Bacchus Marsh, what that does is creates work locally. A lot of people get employed not only directly in those projects, but it's the indirect effect on the economy. It's the pubs, the cafes, the supermarkets that actually will get money from those people doing the works. So I think that this budget is actually probably the perfect time to have this budget when we do potentially face some significant fiscal issues across the country, in that we've seen back in after the Depression, I think it was Coburg City Council actually had the fortitude to spend a lot of money on infrastructure, which is there for 60 years. Now, at the time, that created jobs, because we all know what the Depression was like from what you hear. I wasn't there, of course. But we know what's... Yeah, I thought you might have helped me out there, Councillor Thatchell. But so from those aspects, the reality is that sort of example where they spent the money at the time, created jobs, helped create an economy within, helped that community get through that really tough time, but then they benefited from that infrastructure for the next 50 years. And what we're talking about in this budget is some significant work to continue that Mirraboo's been doing that we will have. I remember having the debates. I remember Councillor Thatcher was Mayor talking about not having built a new oval in Bacchus Marsh before Dawn Fraser won a gold medal. Right, we're doing that now. Right, we're going to set ourselves up right across our shire for the next 30, 40 years, which is a terrific thing. And what that does, it actually takes a long-term financial burden off communities, because if we take Hallett's Way Bridge, for example, originally when I got on council, we were going to build that in 2021. Right, we built it early. It cost us $13 million. If we'd built it today, what would that cost? I actually asked the CEO that question. He said, well, he'd spoken to Mr Jeffries and said it would be 5 times that cost. So if we take the opportunity now, the community will benefit in the long term. And I think that this is just a piece of a jigsaw puzzle that's been going on for 5 or 6 years. Right? And I think it's getting closer to the final piece as a lot of these projects start to wrap up. But I think it's a really good outcome for the community. We haven't had any real significant negative feedback. I do note a number of submissions that were made supported Councillor Thatchell's view. So there is always going to be a mixed view out there, but what we are responsible for as a council is making a determination on what we think is best for our community, not for today or tomorrow, but for over an extended period of time. And with that, I commend the work that the officers and council staff have done preparing this. I think it's a great outcome, delivering a massive amount of infrastructure with the smallest amount the council has put in over the journey. So, well done, council staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillors, the debate is now closed. I'll put the recommendation with that revised addition, point 7. All those in favour? It is carried. Thank you. Council, the next item of business is to move into closed session, but before we do, if you don't mind, I'd just like to acknowledge this is the last council meeting of Sally Jones, who is leaving us at Moorabool and is going to Kingston. It'll be our loss, but Kingston's gain, undoubtedly. Sally has contributed enormously to projects in this municipality, and a lot of the work that even Councillor Edwards has touched upon in his summation of things that happen have been sort of through her endeavours, and also through the CEO, of course. And we just sort of wish her well in her new job, and hopefully she remembers fondly of Moorabool when she sort of looks out the window sometimes and sort of says, geez, I wish I was back at Moorabool. So the door is always open, so well done, and thank you very much for your contribution. It's we're very appreciative. Thank you. Now, will someone move we go into closed session? Councillor Dudzik, Councillor Edwards, I'll put that. All those in favour. So we just have to go into closed session and go offline and